Joining us now to speak on reactions trailing the Petroleum Industry Act, from governors' concerns to its economic impact, is former drafting committee member of the Petroleum Industry Bill and Emeritus Professor of Petroleum Economics and Policy Research, Professor Wunmi Iledare. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning, my friend. It's nice to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good to have you on the show. Prof, let's go right into this. First, given the fact that you were a member of the PIB drafting committee in 2018, and now we have the bill signed into law as an act, which is something of a landmark achievement, not just to the Buhari administration, but to also the oil and gas sector. How much of a landmark achievement is this, given your assessment of what you worked on in 2018 and what has been signed on into law today? Give us your perspective, please, Prof.
Again, thank you. And I'm a member of the advisory committee. But I think it's something we should celebrate. And if we have the full celebration, I think that's excellent, because this has taken 20 years. And that's really the first thing we want to look at. It's a great accomplishment, and it's worth celebrating. That's what I would say. When you start a journey for 20 years and you have to come to an end, I think we celebrate and then see how we implemented to accomplish the objective.
Understood. Professor, lovely. Professor, I hope you can hear me. When we look at the structure...
Yes, I'm hearing myself.
Lovely. When we look at the structure currently of the NNPC, personally, sometimes it can be a bit confusing to understand how the role of the NPC changes with the PIA. I ask, so what exactly is it that the PIA means for the NNPC, and what can we expect going forward? Is this going to be a situation where the NNPC are going to be only publicly funded, or will they take a structure like Saudi Aramco, for example, and privatize? What do we expect?
Well, I think right now, the government owns NNPC fully. That is the federation account. The federation is actually the rule of NNPC. And then the government is trying to make them commercial. When you look at over the years, NNPC has literally behaved as if they are regulator, commercial, as well as policy. And indirectly, they deviated from the original intent of NNPC. And understandably so, because that's where you have the capacity. Going forward, government wants them to be commercial oriented. And it's going to depend on the operational strategy of NNPC going forward. Hopefully, the government will not continue to look at NNPC as a cash cow, doing social optimization of welfare, coming to rescue government based on their energy security issues. And they will let them focus primarily doing the sort of things that Saudi Aramco is doing, but modified to suit our own situation. Saudi Arabia tend to operate something close to pure service contract. Nigeria has a concessionary, a contractual that is not purely pure service. I don't see Nigeria through NNPC operating a pure service contract, which is close to what Saudi Arabia or Saudi Aramco operates, but something in between. Just like when all OPEC member countries were doing things like nationalization, Nigeria went through what they call the joint venture type of approach to manage their oil and gas resources. The only concern with NNPC Limited now is whether the government would be able to let them operate independent of the political power structure of our compromised political system. That is just the only thing there that we cannot predict. Otherwise, the idea conceptually is excellent.
Okay, Prof. The president has inaugurated the steering committee that will, give timelines to all this and see to the execution of the act. And of course, it's headed by the Minister for State for Petroleum, who is from, Bayelsa State, Niger Delta. But as you know, sir, the Niger Delta is unhappy with some aspects of the bill that has been signed into law. The 3% to host communities, of course, is one of the key issues that they are concerned about. How do you think that the federal government should navigate its way into all the concerns being raised by the Niger Delta stakeholders now that we have a proper law in place, ostensibly to regulate the entire oil and gas industry?
Well, again, thank you. That's a legitimate question. And that's where I probably have some issues with respect to the rapidness as which the president signed this bill. Even though I wanted the bill to be signed, I will have some of these knotty issues will have been listened to. And that's where I have a problem at times with the thinking of some of the people who are close to the president. I have a problem with them because I'm not sure they give the president diverse opinion. I think the president at times seems to be protected from the reality on the ground. These are just my opinion. And honestly, if I were advising the president, I would think this is the best time for him to really let go of the Minister of Petroleum portfolio in the remaining 2 years, if this PIA is supposed to be able to deliver. And that's why I'm waiting patiently. I don't have all the names of those who will be on this steering committee. This is an heterogeneous society, and governing a nation with a homogeneous way, to me, looks more like this is our turn mentality, which is what killed the PIB 2012 when Desiane was doing it. I want an heterogeneous implementation committee where there are diverse opinions. And that's what bothers on this host community continuous agitation. If you go back, I do not see why we can't find different ways to really fund those communities. And these are my suggestions, really. The National Assembly needs to go back and look at this 3% of operating costs. Yes, it's okay, but it's not good enough for the type of development the host community really needed. But half bread for now is better than 9, just like the 13%. If we go back and use the 13% derivation fund and let go some portion of it from the state, and that's why at times I don't agree with the governance forum, because they've not used the 13% derivation fund with the intent of the 13%. I don't agree with them because the NDDC fund should have transformed the Niger Delta beyond where they are now. And I don't agree with them because the Ministry of Niger Delta should have also transformed the host community beyond now. And this is my argument. I'm not saying the 3% is good enough. And this is where people don't understand political expediency from economic effectiveness and efficacy of governance. And until the political power in place at a particular time when laws are being made go beyond what I call Esau syndrome and think more posterity, we continue to have this problem where some people will think that they are left behind. And that's what I will say now. I'm hoping the National Assembly can go back and look at the NDDC law, define how it is supposed to be used, and surrender some portion of it for this host community fund. Go to what I call the derivation fund, surrender part of it for this host community fund, because the opportunities there in the host community fund to be able to get more money to do the projects that the host communities are interested in. And please, let us stop emphasizing transfer payment. Let us dedicate this money for capital projects. And that is the beauty of this homegrown solution to developing the host community. And I just wish that my friends in the host community we look at this as an opportunity to be able to develop the environment beyond transfer payment.
Understood. It does sound, though, Professor, that you aren't completely happy with the bill as it is. I know you said that you were happy it was signed, but it also does sound as though you think that there are some improvements that could be made, especially in terms of incentivizing host communities to adopt the act now itself. Could you expand on that a bit more? What do you think the PIA needs to do or needs to include that will incentivize a better reaction from these host communities?
No, I'm very happy that the PIB became law.
Okay.
Listen, I will not sacrifice a good bill for a perfect bill because a perfect bill does not exist. But that doesn't mean, as a professor of what ought to be, I will not say some of these things I'm saying so that the implementation process can pay attention to some of these flaws that are still in this bill. Listen, in a political system, you can never get what you want. There are so many things good in this bill. It's just like wearing a white shirt and you have a red dot on your white shirt. The only thing people will see is the red dot. And that's why we have advised this government over and over again to pay attention to certain things that people will look at and complain for something that is so good. And that's why I do not like the arrogance of power that is displayed in Nigeria over the years. That is, when I'm in power, I can get anything that I want in a prebendalistic way. Of course, Jonathan was there. He could have done the same thing. He didn't do it. And so now to be reading meanings into what is done in this bill is not understanding what political power is. So if I were the government, I will make sure that everybody's on the table in this implementation committee. Listen, I'm a nationalist. Don't look at it from a negative connotation. I believe in a national project. And that's what is missing in Nigeria. This PIA is not as nationalistic as I would have loved it to be. But I understand the political system. And when you are not on the table to think about posterity and only think about prosperity for now, you will get this type of bill. And that's what it is. I am happy with the bill. Don't get me wrong. I would rather see that we take the monkey behind Nigerians' back because of the uncertainty it has created in the investment climate. The only thing is that how are we going to get the investors to react positively? Because this bill is so generous to investors. And that's why I'm not particularly happy that after government gave them this generous bill for deep water, they then decided to divest onshore and shallow water. And I'm making reference to the rumor that Shell is trying to divest. Please, the intent of the law is to take care of some of the peculiarity problem that we have with investment tax credit, investment tax. If you think of what the federal government is owing the international companies, they don't have a choice than to give them this generous fiscal instrument. But I'm expecting the international company to react positively so that the expectation is not doused. But that was the problem that we had before with PIB when the powers that be then thought that we were too generous to the international company. But we're looking at expanding output. You cannot fault this bill with respect to being investment friendly. The only thing I don't like in the bill are the things I've given to you. I see a display of what I call political power arrogance, and I just don't like it because it doesn't look like optimizing the national project. The host community, they are fighting. The NNPC people, they are fighting. And then you then have the people that have their laissez-faire approach. And that will not optimize what we want the PIA to do. The implementation strategy must be inclusive and waiting patiently for the complete constitution of it. And I'll be glad back to come and analyze that. Because if you don't have an heterogeneous implementation committee, you are going to leave some people back and they will interpret it the way I'm interpreting it, as a political arrogance of power.
All right, Prof. I like the way that you have shaped your expectations. But tell us further. I mean, what sort of timelines will you expect from this steering committee? We know, of course, that the NNPC will transform into a commercial entity. We know that the Petroleum Equalization Fund will go, PPPRA will go. So what sort of timelines and attention to details will you expect from this committee? That's one. And then quickly, secondly, you mentioned the part about investors. Given that this is a generous bill, generous proposition to investors, and it looks like a few of them are taking a walk, how would you want the government to redirect their interest into the Nigerian oil and gas sector, given that we now have something that at least they can work with?
Well, the time, prediction is always very difficult. If you thought reform, remember Dr. Lukman, who started it. Let us remember Dr. Egboga, and let us remember some of the great players of this PIB. It's not only this team, because the foundation has been laid for a long time. I'm happy that we are concluding it. I see what you display on the podium as the implementation committee. Now, these are the people per se who actually, so they know the intention of the bill. So I expect the implementation to move very fast, because those people that you display were actually the key actors with what we have today as PIA, and it becomes a lot easier to be able to do it. But we encourage them not to use their own intention alone. Let them expand it. And by the way, I'm not interested, though. Don't get me wrong. I don't have to. I like the role I've played over the years, being an external evaluator of what the government is doing. I am not looking for a government job. I represent the interests of the nation because I enjoy Nigeria growing up, but I don't like what the youth are going. And I become a little bit unhappy when I see laws being passed on the basis of people in power rather than thinking about posterity. That is my problem. That has always been my problem in Nigeria. But let me answer your question quickly. If you allow the commission to be political with the board of directors, if you allow the board of directors, when they enter the room, when we are doing this bill, when the international oil companies come and meet the team, the advisory team in those days, they know they are talking to people with 365 years of experience in this business. So there's no suspicion. One of the things I don't like is that when this bill was in the National Assembly, the international companies were going behind to meet the vice president, the president, and Matic, I tell you. But it's far from what ought to be because of some of the structure in the bill or the act now that are truncated to be able to bend backward to these international companies. And at the end, you can see some of the implication in shallow water and onshore, which indigenous company will have to take over. And that's why I say that, please, when you are implementing these things, get professionals who have nothing at stake but national projects to advise you properly. And I will still repeat, if this thing is going to work, I plead with the president to give the full ministership up. Because this bill, if it's going to work within the next 2 years, it requires an active, dynamic, and on-the-job type of approach from a Minister of Petroleum, because the responsibility is awesome. And if this bill, the act is supposed to deliver what it's supposed to deliver, the Ministry of Petroleum must be restructured. The professionals that we evaluate the policy must have the knowledge so that we're not going to depend on NNPC Limited to advise the president as to whether something is good or not, but policymakers. That is the only way this PIA can deliver what it's supposed to deliver. It's about governance. Let those institutions be empowered and not the personality driving the institutions. And the Minister of Petroleum is very key. And I think the president, I've said it 3 times, should give it up. Give it to someone who's going to be on the act, so that it's not going to be going filter, so that what gets to the president as a minister is filter through the chief of staff or through people. The minister has a constitutional power to govern and direct the industry. And there's no way the president can combine both positions and this PIA will be effective. I'm sorry, I have to say it as it is. Let President Buhari give up the Minister of Petroleum position if this PIA is to be effectively implemented.
Understood. Professor Wunmi Iledare, thank you very much. Petroleum economist and also a PIB drafting committee member back in 2018. Thank you for your time with us here on the show.